On to the next is all I'm saying today in Columbus, Ohio, after you find a way to get a win on the road against a feisty, scrappy Rutgers football team. Final score at the birthplace of college football was Ohio State 35, Rutgers 16. What do we take away from this game? Now, you know what we do here on Sundays. It's one, produce a ton of content, and it's two, it's tell the truth. So on Tell the Truth Sunday, what do we make of Ohio State's performance? What can we take away from this for the rest of the season for Ohio State? And also, is Ohio State going to be number one in the college football playoff rankings when they're announced again this upcoming week? We'll talk about that. First things first, make sure you're subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. We are throttling full speed ahead like Marvin Harrison Jr. towards the Heisman Trophy. We're throttling towards 200,000 subscribers. Want y'all a part of this, okay? So make sure you're subscribed right here so you don't miss a minute of this show, The Hard Count. Also, follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and on Instagram at JD Pakel. A great spot for us to interact and hear from y'all about the show, about what you thought about your Buckeyes, all that in a bag of chips. Make sure you're dialed in at both the YouTube channel and those social platforms. We appreciate y'all in advance. So, what do we make of yesterday? Well, I think Ohio State's defense really got a great test from Rutgers. And you're saying, well, JD, it's Rutgers. Are we really going to say a great test is the word that we should use there? Well, yeah, because of the nature of what Rutgers brings physically to the table. I think that's a great hurdle to pass based on what Michigan's going to be there at the end of the season. And we'll talk more about the game here in just a second. But what Rutgers forced Ohio State to do defensively was play with the third level of their defense. Rutgers said, we're getting downhill. We're sticking true to who we are. We're a 60% run the football kind of team. So if you want to stop us, you better commit some resources. And credit Ohio State. Was it perfect in the run game against Rutgers for them? No. Rutgers still had a pretty good day on the ground, ran for over 100 yards. And again, that's their identity. But what really turned the tables was, one, Ohio State filling from that third level with Josh Proctor and those safeties coming down with bad intentions and saying, all right, you know what? Enough is enough. You're not going to run the ball downhill against us this many times and expect us not to stick our nose in there. Like if this is that's how we're going to play, fine. We'll play that way with you. And then also, what have we seen from Ohio State throughout the course of this year defensively? Bend, but don't break. Now, Rutgers got a few plays in there, but what really turned the tide was Jordan Hancock pick 6. Rutgers is driving, feels like they have momentum on their side. Josh Proctor comes down, lays the lumber, ball is up in the air. Jordan Hancock, opportunistic, takes it the length of the field. When that happened, the tempo at which Rutgers was able to play completely flipped. At that point, they couldn't just run the football. They couldn't control the game anymore. It became a situation where, okay, if you want to beat us, if we're Ohio State, you got to throw the ball. And once it became that kind of game, all bets were off. And Ohio State pedaled to the metal, started to throttle, and the defense took over and only allowed 16 points total. Now, offensively, it's something we got to keep getting used to when we watch Ohio State. Because they're not scoring 40 a game. That's not what this team is built to do. Kyle McCord, we'll talk more about him. 19 for 26, 189 yards, 3 touchdowns, the one pick that you were frustrated to see. I thought Rutgers defensively actually matched up with Ohio State relatively well, just by nature of how long they were in the secondary. Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't have a career day, but again, he's your differentiator. When it's time to win, it's done time playing, and it's time to go to winning mode, you went to Marvin Harrison Jr., and he caught touchdowns for you, and that kind of ended up being the difference maker. Now, here's what I will say, too. TreVeyon Henderson being healthy is such a game changer for this offense. The way that I think about it, it's like adding a little bit of that Tabasco sauce to the recipe. Like, yeah, the recipe's solid before. I love my Chipotle bowl during the week or whenever I am able to just get all the ingredients that I want. I got my non-negotiables. I got my rice, my chicken, my beans. I got Marvin Harrison Jr., which is obviously the differentiator. Got Kyle McCord, who was relatively efficient yesterday. But when you add in a TreVeyon Henderson, his make-you-miss ability, his speed, just the change of pace he brings to the offense, that's going to be the difference maker for Ohio State going forward if he can stay healthy. He was the difference maker yesterday. 22 carries, 128 yards and a touchdown, 5 catches, 80 yards. Rutgers was like, hey, we're not going to give up the big play, going to keep it all in front of us. They kept it all in front of them. But again, the make-you-miss ability of TreVeyon Henderson ended up being the difference when it came to providing those big plays and making guys miss in space. And that's something we hadn't seen from this Ohio State offense. Much more explosive with TreVeyon Henderson in the lineup. So again, you hope he can stay healthy. but that's huge to have him in the lineup, and I think that was a big, big part of what you did offensively yesterday, both schematically and from a box score standpoint. Now, watching this Ohio State team, I don't get any sense of entitlement from them. And what I mean by that is I don't get the feeling, and we've talked about this before, I don't get the feeling they're standing on anybody's shoulders when it comes to previous Ohio State football teams. Like, yes, it was Rutgers. No, it doesn't have the logo appeal of a Penn State or a Michigan or even a Michigan State, to be real with you. But what I saw from them yesterday was, okay, we just do what we do. We stick to the plan. We stick to the formula. And Kyle McCord, again, was it electric with what he did in that box score with 189 yards passing? No, but he did what was asked of him outside of that one interception. The formula is, can we just sort of take what the defense gives us, slowly but surely lean on them, run the football, and then defense, can you hold it down? Defense, can you end up being the whole difference maker for us when it comes to this game? We talk a lot about difference makers with TreVeyon Henderson and Marvin Harrison Jr. The defense is what made the difference. And we say it a lot every single week with Ohio State. We got to say it again. Ryan Day deserves a ton of credit for the formula they're playing with right now. Because great coaches, they adapt to their personnel. They don't just lean into what they've done historically. They don't just lean into, well, we score 40 points a game here at Ohio State, so that's what we have to do every single year. It's not the offense they have right now. They got a lot of playmakers. They got a quarterback who I think is still coming into his own. Now, can Ohio State eventually be a 40 points a game kind of team? I think it's possible. I think it's hard to say you can't when you got a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. in the lineup and when you have TreVeyon Henderson playing the way that he is and when you get Emeka Egbuka back healthy. Like, yes, we understand that, those guys are all in the lineup, but I think Emeka Egbuka, once he really gets rolling, then that conversation becomes a little more realistic. But at the end of the day, man, I think this defense likes being the difference maker. I think they like having the pressure of defense. We got to bring it every single week if we want to win the game. I think they like having that chip on their shoulder and having that weight on their shoulder, quite frankly. And so going forward now with this whole Tell the Truth Sunday theme, defense did a great job yesterday holding Rutgers to 16. Again, bend, don't break. We talked about the big play that kind of turned the tide of the game. All 100% true. But with the way that you played against the run yesterday, I'd be lying if I told you that didn't worry me just a little bit. Because Michigan, when you get to that game in Ann Arbor at the end of the year, they're bringing a little bit more juice when it comes to how they run the football downhill. No way around it. They are going to be a more physical, better version of what you saw from Rutgers. Now, Rutgers did some things with the quarterback run game, and so I want to kind of be a little bit careful how I word this because they'll do some things differently, Michigan. But at the end of the day, with what they bring up front, Michigan will be a tougher test than Rutgers. So on one side, you say, if that's how we look against Rutgers, I don't know if I feel great about the way that we line up there. On the other side, I think we'd be irresponsible to ignore the Penn State game where the Ohio State front seven looked great. And I think we also would be irresponsible to say, well, Ohio State is going to take that Rutgers game and what they did in that front seven and build on it and get better and be better for the Michigan game because of that Rutgers game. So I think that's kind of the whole conversation going forward for Ohio State is it's all about progress. Can you peak at the right time, most specifically when you play Michigan in Ann Arbor? Now that's schematically, it's utilizing your weapons better offensively. It's Kyle McCord getting more comfortable. It's him growing in confidence. It's the defense continuing to evolve as they've already taken a huge step from last year to this year, but even getting more comfortable in that scheme and putting more and more and more into what they do defensively. And then the other part of that is, can you grow in terms of what you do competitively? Can we keep that sense of urgency? Can we have that swag built a little bit week to week and understand, are we the previous Ohio State teams with C.J. Stroud and with Justin Fields and those teams that were kind of having their own edge to them? No. But that's just fine because we're this year's Ohio State team. And this year's Ohio State team actually has the best resume in the country, has quite a few skins on the wall in itself with the win at Notre Dame, the win over Penn State, and now a win on the road against, again, a scrappy Rutgers team. I think this Ohio State team is trending exactly how they need to. They are not what they're going to be when they play Michigan just yet. So was yesterday's effort good enough to beat Michigan? I don't know. But the good news is they don't have to play Michigan just yet. They'll play Michigan at the end of the year. And I think the way that they are trending, again, competitively, last year we were in Columbus, and you couldn't help but feel watching that Ohio State team, they were just a little bit tight when they played Michigan. I should phrase that a little bit better. We were in Columbus for the Michigan game last year, and Ohio State, when I watched them in pregame warmups, they were dialed in, obviously, but there was a sense of maybe just a little bit of tightness. I don't think this team should feel that same amount of pressure. Obviously, there's pressure because the expectations and the brand and what you haven't in the last couple of years, but like this team is its own team. And as they grow in their competitive mindset, I think a game like this is a solid deposit and a solid step forward to being their best when it's required in that game. So what does it mean for Ohio State when it comes to these next college football playoff rankings? I think Ohio State's still going to be number one. I don't think you can penalize Ohio State for getting a double-digit kind of victory. Also, they covered, by the way, on the road against a Big Ten opponent. And I think we go back to this, too. The resume for Ohio State. They still have 2 top 10 wins. Again, I think the resume for them is the best in the country. I see no reason why they should be below number one. But even if they are, so I don't think they will be, but even if they are, for Ohio State, main thing is still the main thing. You win out, you beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, you're in the dance. Everything you want is on the table. So will they be number one? I think so. But the rankings, to me, I think are secondary to the work being done right now. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're dialed in on socials at JD Pickell, Twitter, and on Instagram. Let me know, where do you think Ohio State will be in these next college football playoff rankings? Appreciate y'all. We love y'all. Going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.